For number 2, it says you flip a coin and roll a die at the same time. List the sample space below, or all possible outcomes. The way we need to think about that is if I flip a coin and it lands on heads, I'm going to make a little list right here. If it lands on heads, the different possibilities for the die to land on would be 1, the die could land on 2, the die could land on 3, 4, 5, or 6. So it could land on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, because that's all the different possibilities that one die could result in. So these are going to all be landing on heads, 1 through 6. If the coin I flip ends up landing on tails instead of heads, I would have tails with the possibility of getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 from the die. So if I'm going to list the sample space, if we're listing, that's going to be part of the set. I'm just listing everything I've already put here. H represents heads, and T represents tails. And then I end my braces. Then it says create a Venn diagram with the sample space above using the outcomes of heads and odds. So everything that's going in this bubble is going to be a head. Everything that goes in this bubble needs to be odd. And what they have in common will go in the middle. So what they have in common would be if I got heads and an odd number. So that would be heads and I roll a 1, heads and I roll a 3, heads and I roll a 5. Now, this bubble here is missing all of the other heads that were not odd. So over here I've got heads 1, so that covers it. Heads 2 needs to be placed on this side. Heads 3 is here. Heads 4 must go on this side. Heads 5 is here. So heads 6 must go here. We can double check to make sure that none of these are odd, which they're not, so we can continue on. Over here, we need to have the rest of the odd die rolls, but they can't be heads because our heads are already taking place here. So that's going to result in tails 1, tails 3, and tails 5. Now if we look over here and we're not sure what to do next, we can mark off what we've already used. We've used all of our heads and we've used the odd tails. Oh, oops, I'm sorry. Let's put So now I have tails 2, tails 4, and tails 6 left. Excuse me. So tails 2 does not belong to heads and does not belong to odds. Neither does tails 4 or tails 6. But they still existed, so we have to include them in our diagram. So tails 2, tails 4, and tails 6 will take place out here. Now it says to find the probability. If we're asked to find the probability, again, this capital P means probability, of A intersect B. I'm going to call this one A and this one B. A intersect B is what they have in common. There's 3 options there. If I'm asking for the probability, the answer should be either a fraction or a decimal. So I'm going to start with a fraction, then I'll convert it to a decimal. A intersect B has 3 possible outcomes. Out of the total number of outcomes, I have 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here. So 3, 6, 9, 12. I could also count these up here. I could have also counted these. So 3 out of 12, which brings us to 1/4. Remember, you always need to simplify. And 1/4 is the same as 0.25.